It's 11. Ready? Let me call this meeting of the Prince William County Electoral Board to order. Thank you all very much for being here. Please rise for a moment of silence for whatever is on your hearts and your minds, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Now join the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much for being here. We have moved the agenda around a little bit. I guess the most important thing for you all, we've decided to put citizens' comment at the end of the meeting rather at the beginning. So we're gonna make you sit through the meeting and make sure you hear all the great things that are happening. But that's the major change. We don't have any minutes to approve. We've approved all the minutes for our last meetings at the special election, or the special meeting we had for ballot order. So let me recognize the chairs of the two parties are here. Thank you very much for being here. And Mark, you have a comment or a motion? Or?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as a first order of business, I have a motion that we need to reinstate Mr. Eric Olson as our general registrar due to his previously discussed medical absence. So the motion on the floor is to reinstate Eric as our general registrar.
Second?
Not ready. Eric was out on a medical condition, specifically heart surgery, and we haven't received any medical information, any statements from doctors or anything that he is fit for full duty. Now, he was ready to go. As far as the board is concerned, the acting registrar, until this present moment, is still acting as the acting registrar. He doesn't just walk in and take over without board action. Now, I'm willing to take his word that his doctor has certified him fit for full duty. Because I'd hate to have him come back too early like an athlete and croak on us, and we are liable. So if we can get a statement from him that his doctor has certified him to take over the job, to work full-time, then I'll take that as a doctor statement.
All right. Eric, you want to respond?
Yeah, as my doctor cleared me on, I believe it was May 10th, to come back to work.
Okay.
That was the meeting I had with them. If the board would like me to get something in writing to pass that along to y'all, I'm happy to do that.
I would request a statement to be appended to the minutes to buttress
That's fine. I can
our
do that.
motion, and you're officially taking over again as the general registrar.
So amend to the motion? Mr.
Friendly
Chairman?
amendment.
Friendly amendment?
All right, any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that passes. So thank you very much, Eric. We're very happy to see you back. And Natalia, thank you for the job and the entire staff, the jobs that you all did during the interim when Eric was not here. Let's see. So the next item on the agenda is report from electoral board members. So, Mr. Secretary, anything you want to report?
Did we recognize special guests?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. No,
Okay.
no report.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Sir, I have no additions.
Okay, that was quick. So, General Registrar's report. Eric?
All right. Well, first off, just want to say I'm happy to be back. It was bit of a rough ride on my health journey over the past 6 weeks or so, but happy everything resolved well and continuing to recover. But I'm at about 95% right now, and really happy to be back at work and doing some normal things and to see the team. There's only so much bed rest and Netflix that one can take before you start to lose your mind a little bit. So I'm really happy to be back at work and on the job and working with the great team in our office. So I wanted to start off with talking about our primary election progress. So I want to thank Natalia in the working in the acting registrar capacity while I was out, and John as well. The two deputies really stepped up to handle things while I was out, which meant not only kind of business as usual in preparing for the election, but there were a few different items that we were in the process of implementing and developing over the last several months. So to see those kind of come to fruition while I was out and see that progress continue was really encouraging and really great to see. So one of those items are new absentee envelopes. You guys have a copy there. Our goal was to make these overall more simple and convenient. So we had some trouble last year with them in terms of, one, I thought that the overall design was a little bit challenging to use and a little bit confusing for voters. And we also had issues with people not sealing it properly and them coming open more often. I'm happy to report that these are the cleanest ballots that we've had returned to our office in years, not only from the design we used before, but from previous designs. We've had very few, extremely few that are not secured. Voters are making fewer mistakes. There's always some mistakes that they made, but the absentee team is noticing far fewer than usual. I think it's a much easier design to use. I think it has a higher level of ballot security. We even put the little strip on the back so they don't have to lick the envelope, and that seems to be positive. So I want to thank the Thalia, our communications manager, and Natalia and the absentee team, who all contributed to working on that design over a bunch of meetings. We sort of narrowed it down, and I think it's in a much better place now, and really happy with where that is. Additionally, in terms of this election, early voting has gone very smooth overall. We did have a poll book syncing issue for one day up at Haymarket. We were able to quickly fix that, and we haven't had any other issues since. So otherwise, I think that has gone, very well so far. We also had something that's different is a new LNA process to test our ballots, and that's gone well. So my thanks to John for implementing that while I was out. We talked about it after the special election and kind of weighed a whole bunch of different options with me, John, and the operations team. And we decided to go against the vendor recommendation for that and the process they advocated for us to use. But I think this process is better from a transparency standpoint. I think it solves some questions that we'd had from some of the election integrity groups about the different drives going in the machine. Now there's just one drive that's being used, so that's an improvement. It also creates a quality control on our end from the ballot issues that we had in the special election. We know that our printer has implemented some quality control measures, but we wanted to make sure that we had more on our end, and we couldn't really do that without modifying our logic and accuracy process. So we've gotten good feedback from the staff, we've gotten good feedback from observers, and tomorrow we'll be doing that for Election Day. And I think that's worked out well with our timeline too, because if we did have some kind of issue with the ballots when we go through LNA testing, we have plenty of time before Election Day to correct that issue and make sure that we are good to go when Election Day rolls around. So those are kind of some things related to this particular election. Then what you all have there, and there's a copy out on the table if the public wants to take a look at it during or after the meeting, which is our election task tracking and compliance. So this is the kind of the dovetail of a couple of different things. We implemented a new software this year called Electask, which staff has all contributed to. Last year we did this in Excel spreadsheets, and staff were developing sort of a rubric for us for each election and what the different tasks are that we have to accomplish. Some of these things take a couple hours, some of them take multiple staff a couple weeks. It really depends on the task. We have about 300 of them so far. I'm sure we will expand that as we go forward. And then related to that, when Mark got on the board, he wanted to sort of review the different the EB and GR duties, so the Electoral Board and General Registrar duties, and how they what falls under whose domain, which things are specifically laid out for the Electoral Board, which things are specifically laid out for the GR, which things will the Electoral Board decide to delegate to the GR, which ones will they not. So we had a preliminary meeting about that in March. We'll discuss that a little bit more later in the meeting today. But so this kind of brought those two things together, because what I've done is on this task list, I have updated those items that are not on. Now, some of these are smaller things like, sending the facilities a notice, an update about the election. That's not a code requirement. There's a lot of things that are not code required here, but some of them are. And on this list that I've given you guys, I've identified what number it is on our GR EB duties matrix, so you all can see kind of the corresponding code pretty easily. I think that both the GR EB duties matrix and this are probably at about the 80% mark, the 85% mark in terms of completion. I think they still need some work. I think this election we'll probably learn a few things that need to be updated, added. As I was going through this, last night I noticed that our 100-day notice for overseas voters is a code section that's not on the EBGR duties list. So some things like that are things that we are doing, but which we need to correct those documents and update those documents. And I think that'll continue to be kind of a living thing that keeps going. Happy to report that as of right now, in terms of what should be accomplished by this point, staff has completed about 89% of the tasks on this list that were due by Monday of this week. There are about 10% more that are in progress, and then there are 1% that are not completed yet. And I think those are ones that we need to talk about a little bit today. Mark, did you want me to kind of go through the different statutory ones that are completed, the ones that are off the matrix? I mean, we have about 100 and I think there's what, 150, a little over 165 tasks total.
Right.
I probably don't want to list,
No.
go through
I wouldn't
all of
mind if
them.
you maybe just give us a flavor.
Okay,
Just kind of pick out a couple.
Okay,
Just to
that
give us
sounds
an
good.
idea, Mr. Chairman, if that's okay with you, as part of the report.
sure. Okay, so for example, there are certain standards for the inserts that go into our absentee envelope. This is for you all who are here watching, there's a copy of this out of the table that you can check out. There is on this list, we call it the E- date. So that is how many days before the election this item has to be done. Some of those are purposeful and required, like by this date we have to have this certain item done. Some of them are aspirational, that, okay, at about the 120-day mark before the election we should have this done. But if it's done at the 130 or the 115 mark, things will probably be okay as long as we're keeping things moving overall. So one of those items is refers to the EBGR matrix for inserts, that there are certain standards that we have to abide by with the state. So we have to make sure that the inserts that we're putting in the envelopes meet those state standards. So at the 120-day mark for the election, we met that standard. Prior to the election, by about 100 days, we have to calculate the ballot order to make sure that we are supplying a sufficient number of ballots. Also at the 100-day mark, one of the ones I mentioned is that we're supposed to post a 100-day notice for overseas voters. That is one that's not currently in the matrix. Let's see.
Is that on the website, or where do you post that?
Yeah, it's listed on the website. Most of the notices that we have are put on the website. The code usually allows for either the website or 10 public places or something else in most of those instances. So another one, for example, 67 days before the election, we have to create and proof the ballots and make sure that the ballots are compliant with all the state standards for ballot design. So that has been completed. Another one in kind of an operations domain at 60 days roughly. We need to make sure that we've completed logic and accuracy tests for both the early voting and the absentee. That's the high-speed scanner. Now, the timeline there is not necessarily specific to when that has to be done, but obviously it has to be completed before early voting and absentee voting start, and with enough time to give the party chairs notice so that observers can be present to watch that. So those are a few of them. We have a ton in terms of the statutory ones that kind of hit early. There's a lot around the 60 and the 45-day mark. One of our biggest ones at the 45-day mark, which is when early voting starts, is that we're compliant with sending out absentee ballots for the first mail-out. And we also have to complete a compliance survey that we submit to the state to verify that we have done so. So those are two items. That's item 8 and 9 in the GREB matrix, and we have completed those. There are two that I noticed that have not been completed, and I wanted to cover today. We are already covering one of those, which is review compliance of the Electoral Board security plan. So I know we're going to discuss that in closed session further today and talk about the Electoral Board security plan, talk about the LESS survey, which is a survey the state requires us to complete annually. The other one that I wasn't sure about, and I thought, well, the board and John can update me on this, but I didn't know if an officer staffing plan had been submitted to you all for approval. That's usually done right around, I would say, the 3-month mark. And that's right around the time when I took my leave. So I wasn't sure if that was approved. John or board members, was that completed? Did the board approve the staffing plan?
Staffing for early voting?
For election day.
I would say no.
Okay. So I think what we need to do is email you all the staffing plan for that. I can tell you generally that for this election we have, I think, 5 officers at pretty much all of our precincts. There may be a few of our smaller ones that'll have 4, some of our larger ones that'll have 6. I think that should be sufficient given what we typically see for a primary election, but I will go ahead and email that to you all so you can see if you all have any objections or feedback. We can update that. Wrangling election officers is always an ongoing thing from several months before the election right up until, a couple days before. So if we need to make adjustments to that, Dina and our newest employee, Rick, on the election officer staffing team, they are working on that every day so we can make adjustments if you all feel there are any we need to do. So
Let me ask you at this point.
Yeah.
So where are we in terms of the partisan leadership for all the precincts? since we have to have a D and an R?
Yeah.
Where are we on that?
Last I knew from Dina, John, you update me if I'm wrong here. I think we have 7 chiefs that we need, and I think we have 5 assistant chiefs that we need, somewhere in that range. Is that right, or is it more than that?
7 and 7.
Oh, 7 and 7?
7 assistant chiefs at the moment.
Okay,
We want to probably break out that.
okay. Yeah, that would be helpful.
We need 7 Republican assistant chiefs
Okay,
and 6 Republican chiefs
okay,
and 1 Democrat assistant chief.
okay. So it's mostly Republican needs at this point. I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later when we get to election officer recruitment and communication and new business, and talk about a few things related to that for the future. But Dina and the team are, continuing to work on that. If there's feedback from the party, Denny, and additional recruits or people that we can draw. I know that Dina and the team are basically working as much as they can to try to get some of the Republican team members in those precincts to step up into those roles. It is not uncommon for individuals who have only worked an election or two, as many of them have, that maybe they don't feel like they're ready for that yet, or they're just not comfortable with it. Or sometimes people just prefer to be an officer. So they're continuing to wrangle and encourage and cajole to get people to step up into those roles. And, if the parties have feedback to help us with that process, we welcome that to help us fulfill that. But I think that's in pretty good shape at this point. So that means we're 94, 93% there on our leadership position. So we'll continue to work on that. Let's see. Okay, so I think that kind of covers what this task tracking is about. I think it's been really useful in terms of part of why we switched over to the Elect Task software is that the spreadsheet we used before was useful, but people kind of forgot about it. And I found myself sending reminders, hey, everybody, make sure to update your tasks. The software we're using now automatically does that, and it's pretty easy just to go right onto the website. You can also put notes in that field, and it's easy to, once we have templates built for both of our elections, it's easy just to copy, paste that template into a future election, and then all the dates when we have to hit these tasks are automatically all backfilled. So it's good time saving. It's good because it pushes people and reminds them if they have a task overdue or they have a task coming up, they're getting automatic emails about what that task is, and they're able to do that. And what I'd like to do, as we're still getting comfortable with using the software, we implemented this right around the time, I think right when I went away for my surgery, we had a training. Was it like the next week we had training on it? So I missed the initial training, but I've become familiar with the software since getting back. And what I'd like to do is get the board members you guys your own logins, and that way if there's any point where you guys want to go on and see where things are at, you'll be able to see that. And I think that'll be a really great tool for both the office and for you all. So any other questions or?
So
Before we completely abandon the primary election process, I'm not sure if you were aware of the issue that we had at the Haymarket Library. I didn't report it to John. I don't think it was reported to him, but the librarian there threatened to essentially shut us down.
Yeah.
You aware of this?
I knew that was they had told me that there was a problem with the facility and getting in initially.
Well, the problem was that the librarian had accused the John Stirrup camp of leaving a tent up all night, 24/7.
Yeah.
So the chief called me, and I called John Stirrup, and we had a little powwow between the librarian, Ms. Walker, and John Stirrup, and he said that the allegation was that they left the tent up all night. She said that her staff had reported that the tent was up when they left, in the afternoon, and it was back up the next morning. And John said, well, we didn't leave until your staff left, and we were back before your staff came in the morning. So when they saw the tent up, it implied to them that it had been up all night, but they had in fact taken it down. And they had come back the next morning and put it up early. They didn't work snowflake or banker's hours. The librarian accepted that at the spur of the moment, but the next day she came out with an order, a librarian's order, saying that the issue was in fact safety of children and that children can be injured. It's kind of a attractive nuisance if there's a table and chairs and a tent there. So I'm not sure that the matter has been thoroughly resolved to her satisfaction or whether we're going to have a problem with her in the future.
Yeah.
But I know that the Board of County Supervisors assigns
Yes.
the precincts, and we only have this one precinct in Haymarket, the
Yeah.
library.
Yep. John, can you provide me an update? Was the issue that the tent was being left overnight, or was the issue that it had been left unattended?
Unattended.
Okay, I think that's what was reported to us, was that it
Well,
was
she told me
being left unattended.
She told me that she didn't want it left overnight. So that was the issue as I saw it.
Okay,
There were two people in the tent when I went there, and he said that there were always two people in the tent.
okay,
Not that it was left abandoned during the day, but it was left up all night.
okay. Well, John and I can follow up with that facility before the week's over to check in with them on that.
I'm not sure if we have another alternative site. There has to be a public building, right?
Well, by ordinance, we have to use Haymarket, so, and I don't think there's any, I don't know what rule she would be citing or law she would be citing that tent is a problem if it's just left. I'd understand I know that there's a, kind of a standing county rule about signs and things at these facilities in terms of their staying there overnight in some instances and at some locations, but I don't know I'd be curious to talk to them to find out what rule they are saying is, being violated if the tent is just left because someone's taking a lunch break or something like that. So we'll follow up with them and find out, and I will email you all with a resolution on the matter. Facility issues are always a challenge each election. We are the guests of some of these sites, so we try to work with them as best we can. But if they're trying to enforce rules that are not real county laws, or then we need to make sure that the parties or campaign workers or election workers are able to do their job. So we'll follow up on that and email you all an update.
Okay.
Anything else from you guys on the primary election?
No.
Okay,
Thanks, Eric.
thank you. Okay, so the next topic on here is voter roll cleaning. I asked Natalia, she's our Deputy Director of Voter Services, and she has been in the office as we've had a lot of NCO mailing, mail come back, and so she's going to provide a report on that process and some statistics related to that as well.
I believe, I hope you guys can hear me. I believe there is a hangout that you have. If we can follow along that would be great. There's a public copy available as well. And you're more than welcome to stop me at any point and ask questions if you have any. So I'll start with the permanent absentee list maintenance. That was one of the questions that was asked by the board to provide some feedback on that. Again, what we do, we have to follow the code and requirements. So there is a law requirement that permanent absentee applications must be canceled when a voter registration status changes to an active status. And that is Code Referral 24.2703-1 D. So again, based on that, that's how we implement it in our office. So there's a few instances when we can remove a voter from the permanent absentee list. The first one would be if the voter themselves, they sign a form and they stated that they would like to be removed from that list. It has to be provided in writing and it has to be signed by the voter. No other circumstances, in no other instances we will take that as cancellation. If the voter registration has been canceled, so basically, if they moved out of jurisdiction and somewhere else in the other state, they filled out a form stating that they're no longer in Virginia. When we cancel their voter registration, we also will cancel their permanent absentee application. And another instance would be when the voter registration is placed on inactive status, and that is what we will talk a little bit more about in just a second. And of course, if the fourth instance would be when the voter moves to a different address in a new locality. So if they change the address within Prince William County, we're able to update our permanent absentee list. There are reports that were received when they change their address, and we will send the ballot to the new address within Prince William County. However, it doesn't apply when they move out of Prince William County. They are obligated to fill out a new absentee application in order to get back on the permanent list. So the locality will be taking care of that. The other locality will be taking care of that. So with an active status, of course, we do get reports from Elect providing statistics and providing the list of those who are in active status, and we basically maintain that. So this is my brag moment. If you look at the little table over there, you can see that we just recently got one of those reports from the state. You see that there are several neighbor localities kind of in the same size with us. They did have some AB, we call application to expired, which means that the voters need to be moved out of the permanent absentee list. Prince William County had 0. So this is thanks to our wonderful absentee team and Cynthia for doing an amazing job making sure that our rolls are cleared. So again, this will take place before the ballots are being mailed out, just to make sure that everyone follows. So no ballots are going to voters if they are on inactive status. Okay, and Elect does follow up on that as well, making sure that those voters have been removed from the list as well.
Natalia, just a quick note for the board. So one of the things with Veris is that these things have to be done manually. That you would think that in the database, when somebody is canceled, that it would automatically trigger other actions that would then cancel the permanent absentee ballot. It does not, so we have to stay vigilant on that. And hopefully the new Veris, hopefully that's one of the things that may get solved in that, where it'll make that automatic, so.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, there
Yeah.
are limitations where we, Veris cannot cancel them itself, so we do have to get involved and make sure that it's being maintained. If board doesn't have any questions about the permanent absentee list maintenance, I'll move on to the voter registrations. Okay, alrighty. Same thing, we do follow the code, and federal law requires each state to have a program that will make a reasonable effort to remove those who are ineligible to vote in a state. So one of those programs that, of course, you're familiar with is National Change of Address, or NCOA mailing, that is taking place every year. It used to be just once a year. State will mail notices to those who they triggered as possible move within the locality, within state of Virginia, and also out of state. So in just recently, in the last few months, the state decided that they will start doing it twice a year. So one of those NCOA mailings just recently was done in February, and if you move in the next page, you will see that that number for just February under removal categories and COA 2023, it was 19,341 voters that received that NCOA mailing. So that's just some statistics to provide. Along with NCOA mailing, there is a list maintenance that state is doing, and we're following that. So you have under incoming data, again, this is covered by 24.2/427. We have from Secretary of Commonwealth for Restoration of Rights, we receive reports monthly with those who are possibly matched to the felons, and we follow with that. We cancel those registrations as soon as we are made aware of that. From the Bureau of Vital Statistics, we get deaths matches as well. This is done weekly, so we do see that being done as well, and that is along with we do have now where there's a program if somebody reports a death or we think that there is a possible match, we fill out the form. We also can request the state to verify if that is, matter of fact, a death, and we will be able to cancel that person as well. We get reports from the Virginia State Police, again, regarding the felony convictions monthly. We do receive from DMV non-citizen match. Just to be clear, non-citizen match, that the person went to DMV, they fill out their regular DMV form, whatever they were doing, registration, driver's license update, the receiving driver's license. On the very top in the left corner where the clipboard is located, probably not the best place, but there is a question, yes or no, to the citizenship. So when we receive a match, a possible non-citizen, it doesn't necessarily mean that they say no to non-citizen. If they missed that question, we also receive that report. What it does, it creates intent to cancel. We mail a voter a notice. They have 14 days to respond to us with confirmation of citizenship. If they do respond, they will be able to stay on the roll. If not, within 14 days up, after 14 days up, they will be canceled. Of course, mail is not a great tool right now, so sometimes it happens, then it gets lost or misdelivered or whatever my circumstances be. If the voter, however, comes or fills out a new voter registration where they state they are a citizen, it will be accepted and they will be eligible to vote as well. To continue on the list, you see that there is a Virginia Circuit Court, mentally incapacitated, again, the report provided monthly. We get another felony convictions from U.S. district courts, that is provided quarterly. I already covered NCOA mailings, out-of-state mailings done once a year. And what we do in our office, we run 2 reports. It's a duplicate research listing and Social Security duplicate registrant listing. So what it does, for example, somebody is registering somewhere else in another locality. Whatever happened, they misput their Social Security, the name was not put correctly or whatever it is, the system will detect that person as a duplicate registrant. We will get it on the report, we will follow up, we will verify it against DMV database to make sure that whoever is in the gatekeeper of the right registration, we address that. We will merge those registrations so there are no duplicate registrations in the Commonwealth. So that's what we can control, and that is done weekly. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
No.
I have a comment. So thank you, Natalia, for an incredibly informative update. I guess I do have a question. We're going to post this information? Can we make it part of the?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we usually post the
Okay.
meetings from the materials. Oftentimes I like to have a PowerPoint for the
Sure.
audience members, so my apologies. I've
That's all right.
had to
No,
cram
no,
a lot into
we're
the
good.
last 7 days or so. But Thalia will get, when she puts the board materials up, we'll have a copy of the
Perfect.
different handouts that you guys have today, the absentee list report, the general registrar EB duties and the task list that we've got so far.
Yes, incredible amount of information there, very informative. I think we all certainly support election integrity, and we all believe that transparency is and sunshine is the best antiseptic. So there's a lot of misinformation, misconceptions. We represent, this board, this august body represents the citizens of Prince William County. And so in order to demonstrate, to the citizens, this body is maintaining accurate voter rolls actively through the general registrar staff is actively doing that. I'll request that, Eric, this should become part of your report every month to the
Yeah.
board, not in this necessarily in detail, but reference to, we removed this many voters this month, or we solicited.
Absolutely.
Based on the code's activities, and we should just routinely report on that so that the citizens have an idea of all the great activity that's going on. I don't think it's an additional work, because you're
No.
already doing the work. It's just, we would report it, again, to ensure the citizens that we're maintaining active participation in that
We'll be
action.
more than happy to.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sounds
I
good.
don't think we need to make a motion, just, we'll
I talked to
take
Natalia about
that
it in
in.
the office, and
And it's related to a lot of the other activity that's going on, so
Yeah.
thank you very much, Natalia.
All right, thanks very much. It's comprehensive, and let me echo what the vice chairman just said. It's important for voters to understand that there are specific statutory obligations that every registrar has to maintain the most accurate voter list that's possible, and Prince William County is complying with all of that, and it's in everyone's best interest to understand that we're working hard to make sure that the voter rolls are as accurate and up to date as possible. So, thanks very much. The next issue is Eric update. This is a different Eric.
this is a pretty short one for me. So the state opted out of the ERIC system. I believe this was as of last week, which is the ERIC system, if you don't know, is a multi-state data sharing project that I guess helps facilitate states sharing data. And we don't have any word yet on what the replacement plan is for that. I think that's probably in progress. Most notably for our immediate neighbors where, especially here in Northern Virginia, we have a lot of crossover with DC and Maryland. So information sharing with those states in particular is helpful. So we will wait to hear word from the State Department of Elections on kind of what their plan is for that, and we'll see where that goes. And I may talk about in maybe a future board meeting some of the changes we might need to make based on Eric no longer being something that Virginia is a member of.
Okay, any questions? Let
No
me,
questions.
I do have I want to make a motion at this point. So I would move that the Prince William County Electoral Board send a letter to the commissioner and ask her to reconsider her decision to remove Virginia from the ERIC system. We just had a presentation about all the efforts that the registrars do to clean up the voter rolls. And I can guarantee that some of the data that is used by our office and registrars all across Virginia is obtained through ERIC. And ERIC was set up in 2012 when Bob McDonnell was governor and Ken Cuccinelli was the Attorney General. And at one point there were over 30 states part of ERIC, and they were sharing information so that we didn't have dead people on the rolls or people who had moved 2 or 3 times in different jurisdictions. And so I think it's the plan apparently is, so now the Virginia Elections Office is going to have to work state by state. Instead of having a consortium that automatically does all this work, Virginia's going to have to now work with Maryland and DC and Tennessee and North Carolina to recreate what ERIC has been doing since 2012. So I think it was unfortunate that the commissioner made that decision, and I think it was basically politics. So I would like to move that the electoral board send a letter to the commissioner asking her to reconsider Virginia's removal from ERIC. Is there a second?
No second from me.
Okay. So just let me draw the conclusion to this. So this is all about politics. So at some point during Eric's life, they received a grant from the Pew Charitable Foundation. At some point during the life of the Pew Foundation, they received a grant from George Soros. So the fact that the Pew received money from George Soros automatically disqualifies in the view of some of the election deniers that Eric can no longer be trusted because they received money from somebody who received money from George Soros. And more than 30 states were part of this consortium. And then after the 2022 election, all of a sudden you had Republican election officials in a number of Republican states all decide, well, I'm not sure we can trust Eric anymore. And so there's been a concerted effort to convince these states to withdraw from ERIC. And ERIC is the only group out there right now that does this. And so all of these states that are withdrawing are going to have to recreate this wheel at some cost and effort. So I just think it's incredibly unfortunate that at this point in time, and with this concern about the integrity of the voter rolls, that the commissioner would decide to make this decision. So there's no second. So there will be no letter from the electoral board. I may send a letter on my own, but I just think that it's incredibly unfortunate that the commissioner has decided to do this at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I had dinner with Susan Beals at the Roanoke meeting, and I'm convinced that she knows what she's doing, that she has studied the matter, and it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction, and it wasn't just based on some contribution from George Soros, which is why I failed to second your motion. So I think that she knows what she's doing, and I trust her.
Okay, moving on to polling place update.
All right, so in terms of our polling places, the Board of County Supervisors passed an ordinance this year to modify 5 of the polling places. The precincts and all of our boundaries remain exactly the same as they were after redistricting. But I think it's pretty common that after redistricting is completed, that there are some, tweaks here and there. In this particular case, these are mostly precincts that are in and around the Neabsco magisterial district that were outside of the boundaries of the polling place and or the district where they were. So most of them fall under that. In one instance, there was Jenkins Elementary was being shared by 2 precincts, and we have a fire hall now that's inside one of those precincts boundaries, so that won't have to be a super precinct anymore. So anyway, those changes have been made by the county supervisors. And just to be clear on that, the county supervisors, I think this was a law change a few years ago. It used to be that the board determined what those polling places would be. The Board of County Supervisors is now the body that decides the polling places. They have to be approved by the Attorney General. So we've completed that process. The ordinance was passed by the county. The Attorney General issued us a certificate of no objection to those changes. And we sent a letter to all of the voters informing them of that change. By code, prior to a primary election, we have to provide that 15 days or more prior to the election. So we've met that code standard. We have a little bit of an unfortunate offshoot around this, which is that we've had a lot of complaints about voters that don't want to go to the mosque for voting, which is the Dar al-Noor Islamic Center. The refrain that we have said to those voters is that we use a variety of buildings for voting. That includes churches and mosques, that includes schools and libraries. They are public and private. All of those buildings have the same rules. We have heard some, I would say it's mostly based on rumor because the mosque has already been a precinct for at least 2 elections last year. I heard I have to take my shoes off. I heard that women have to go in a separate entrance. None of that is true, that in practice or in rules. All polling places have the same rules and the same standards that have to be met. The mosque has been a good partner for us, and I would say that of all of our private partners that house us for election day. Most of the locations we're in are public buildings, fire halls, schools. That covers 80 to 90% of our locations, but in some instances we just don't have public buildings that are located within certain precincts, and sometimes we have to turn to churches and other private organizations to provide the open space for voting. So I just wanted to reiterate that we appreciate all those private locations and what they do. There are no rule differences at the mosque compared to any other precinct. We've had no incidents or problems there, or any reasons that voters should be concerned. If they are, then we have been advising voters that early voting opportunities are available and absentee voting opportunities are available, and we've given people hours and application information for those processes, should they not be comfortable going to any particular location for election day. So that's where we're at with the polling places. Any questions from the board about that?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Yeah, I remember years ago, we received complaints when we first opened voting at First Mount Zion Baptist Church. Not only was it a church, but it was a church with a pastor who was, active politically. And, I know we gave them the same response. It's a public facility that we use and that they can vote absentee. And it's unfortunate that we're still receiving those kind of complaints from voters. But, I think you're doing exactly the right thing.
And I think that, related to that, none of the complaints or sort of phobia that we've gotten around it has had any threats to it, which is good. We are, though, in communication with the county police, and we're going to continue to talk with them. We always talk with them about any potential threats and things like that as we go up to elections at any of our polling places. So this will continue to be, part of that conversation as well. I think that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, unfinished business, any more on the clarification of the EB duties? You want to go through this anymore, or have we covered that?
Well, you guys, I sent you the copy. We talked about this in March, and you guys had a copy then. This is the same copy that we had from the March meeting. I didn't know do you all want to go through, there's highlighted ones in here that are the ones that I think most of them are pretty straightforward, both in the sense that the code is explicit about, something being your duty, something being my duty, or in some cases, it's just something that's typically been it's something you all could take on, but given the nature of your job and the number of hours you guys have to devote to it, it would be a huge undertaking. So I've highlighted the ones that are on here that are, okay, there's some question here as to how you all want to handle it, whether you want to delegate your duties as is allowed by code, or if it's something that you all want to take a more active role in. Do you all want to go through?
So, Mr. Chairman, I have a recommendation. So, as you know, the genesis of this was reviewing our roles and responsibilities for both organizations when I first came on board. There's certain provisions there's certain areas that we obviously as board members cannot delegate. Protection of ballots, general registrar's evaluation, appointment of election officers, and certifying election results. Those 4 we cannot delegate. So what I believe Eric has done here is he's gone through the list that we developed, comparing the 2 documents. I think it's Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of the training, of the state manual. And so I've made a note of some of those that he's highlighted. And I do think that we should just, before we approve this, if I think that's our ultimate goal, is to approve this along with, aligning it with the election task tracker, that we should go through it, give them an opportunity to explain it, so we make sure there's no daylight between us.
Sure.
And in some of these, I believe we're going to have to go back and do some, where we should have documented, if the board in the past had delegated that, it's my belief we need to document, find out where that's documented. So
Yeah.
I recommend we go through at least the highlighted ones, not all of them, but just the highlighted ones to make sure we're clear on those.
That makes sense. And I think, Mark, too, with this, I think it was a great idea to kind of go in and examine this. I also think this is something that you guys might want to look at something, and you might get to September and say, hey,
Absolutely.
I think we could just
Yeah,
put that
yeah.
back on the agenda then and make it kind of a living
So number
thing.
105, for example, you highlighted that, Eric, and you said in the notes that sets the term for the deputy registrar is not used. Did we hire and evaluate staff? That's delegated to you, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
that generally has been. I know
Okay.
most of these I don't have strong feelings about. This
Okay.
one I think is actually Keith might remember I asked about this when I was interviewed, because I think that if I'm going to be held responsible for the performance of the agency, then obviously having the discretion to hire the people in the positions that I feel like I think we need to meet our goals is pretty critical. I also think that there's this weird component of this, which is like the term of the deputy registrars, which almost makes it sound like the staff would be reappointed by the board every 4 years. And while I certainly understand my obligation and you guys have the right to reappoint someone else at those intervals, I don't think that's really fair to staff that are putting in the work day in, day out to then
Fair enough.
be
No, that's
subject
fair
to
enough.
that. So.
The next one I had a question on, Eric, was, I believe it's on page 5, number 304. It says that GR responsibilities are delegated, and your note was that it technically comes from the secretary. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can put this as, I think somebody say GREB, GR/EB, like.
Yes.
Natalia does most of our candidate work, and she's going to be generating the letters and the communications and stuff.
Sure.
But we would have to have, London come in and review and sign those prior to
Absolutely.
them being sent
Okay.
out. So
Yeah,
I'll
I
just change
recommend
that
we do
to the GR and EB both.
I didn't have. The next one was number 506 on page 8. General registrar delegated in terms of the title, the duty of the task is non-affiliated chief officers. Staff dedicating, the note said that the staff is dedicated to election officers staffing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand that, so that's why.
I think just that if this is a GR delegated duty, then that would be something that I would then delegate to the staff
Okay.
who handles that. So Dina and her team, in terms of sending that notice, I believe that's in our election officer policy as well.
Okay.
To provide that notice if we have anybody. I mean, thankfully, the last, I think we're getting to the point where
Sure.
we don't have to worry about that. But that was just basically that staff is responsible for that.
Okay. Is that affiliated with the issue we were talking earlier with, that John brought up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the staffing
Okay.
gaps. Yeah.
Okay.
But we've gotten the message out pretty strongly to our nonpartisan officers that, look, if you're nonpartisan, then maybe if we get to somebody drops out 3 days before the election and we need a fill-in, that we have to use that if that's the case. But
Right.
generally, the chiefs and the assistant chiefs are going to be associated with the party.
Correct. Okay. So a similar question, I think the same response on number 508, because it has to do with election officers. All right, next one was 510, training plan review. This is our responsibility as Electoral Board for certifying to the DOE. Do we establish a date to do that? I would
I
offer.
think
it
it's
says-
on the task list.
Okay.
But
All
this
right.
is a November only
Correct.
one.
All right. Don't need to belabor the point, just, I agree with it as long as we put it on the list, because I can't remember what I had for breakfast today, but, as long as we have a reminder out there to tell us that.
Gotcha.
Similar for number 513, the state training standards. I don't know where we probably need a date or a reminder to us that we have an obligation to. Must ensure that the general registrar is certified to elect the training officers. Training of the officers of election have been conducted because this was training standards. So we have an obligation there to do something, so we just need a reminder to
Yeah.
tell us when to do that.
Should I change that to GR and EB?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And let me go back to
Yes, sir.
510. I think that should also be GREB.
Joint. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we build a plan, present it to you all, and you all, it's your all's prerogative to sign off on it or make changes.
Let's see, both, both number 605, I think, and 609 are sort of similar in terms of the action, the duty, the task. Both have been, one's delegated, one's to you. The election board or the GR must have the printed ballot sorted. And then the other one says, does designated person be continuously present in the room when ballots are printed? My ask for that, my suggestion is, again, we just put a date, a time, who's gonna do it, when they're gonna do it, and
Yeah.
we document it by this board that we've approved it before that action takes place,
Yeah.
not
No, I
after the
think
fact.
that's
So if
good,
it's
and I
not in
think
task,
I've got them all in here somewhere. I need to make some revisions to this, but all the ones that are time sensitive to an election, like the printer designation one there, those are in the task list, and they do have sort of a, okay, by this date, we need to have this, and trying to allow some extra room for, planning ahead.
that concludes my round of questions that I had. Just, again, as a reminder, the delegation by this board delegation to the general registrar doesn't absolve us of our legal responsibilities for oversight and management of elections. So hence, that's why I'm kind of picking at this, but I
Yeah.
believe it's important. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mark. So that triggered a question. So I know that we received the first round of election officer assignments, and I know that is a daily, it changes every day. So when is the next time that the list is going to be circulated to the two party chairs and to the electoral board? How close before the election?
Oh, for the staffing list?
Yeah, the staff for all of these things.
There's a date in the policy that was adopted last year. And I don't remember what that is. I feel like is it 2 weeks?
I'll say it's that 10-day period.
It's either 10 days or 14 days, and I can't remember which one. I can check on that.
Okay.
I'll find that out, Keith, and I'll send that to you all.
Okay, new business, appointment of election officers.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I was gonna submit a motion. So before we get to the
Oh,
election
okay.
officer piece, I apologize for that. and if you'll permit me. So the authority for the administration of all aspects of elections for the locality remains with the Electoral Board, including oversight of the General Registrar, and is responsible to the State Board of Elections for that administration. This all makes sense here in a second. The members of the local electoral board are responsible for a substantial list of duties and possess a wide range of statutorily imposed authority that have been discussed, some of which have been discussed and provided earlier. It's my belief that implementing this, the electoral board general registrar duties matrix, along with what the good work that's already taken place through the new software through electoral task, will allow this body to do a better job of faithfully and impartially discharging our fiduciary and statutory responsibilities to the citizens of Prince William County. Therefore, I propose a motion that we approve the GREB matrix, as well as supported by the elect task, and make sure that those activities we continually update at this meeting every month, or every time we have a board meeting.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. And yeah, thanks very much, Mark, for all
Yes,
of
sir.
your work on this. I think it's, you know, all the years that I've been on the electoral board, this is the most comprehensive look we've ever taken at, you know, the breakdown of responsibilities between the board and the registrar. So it's a good process. Okay, back to election officers.
Okay, so you all have a list in front of you.
Yes, sir.
Now, these are not new officers. These are officers that the parties have approved coming from, they previously had a, you know, a nonpartisan status, which the way that was used in the past could have indicated they truly wanted to be a nonpartisan officer, or it could have been them, you know, at that status because they thought it made them more hireable. You know, a little bit of a mess in the past years there. So anyway, there are officers here that have been approved by the chairs from both parties. Most of these officers here have leadership experience, so it'll be real helpful to putting them into some of those, you know, leadership gaps that we've got. So, yeah.
So motion to approve the appointment of these election officers as printed.
Question.
Okay.
Have
Yes,
these
sir.
been approved by the party chairs?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
second.
All right,
It's a long meeting. It's been a long meeting.
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimously. Thanks to both party chairs for doing this. We want to do everything we can to make sure we don't end up in a situation where, you know, we're down to crunch time and we don't have the equal balance in every precinct. So, okay, next is election officer recruitment and communication.
Okay, so I just want to provide you all an update. So I think, you know, we're looking at, when we're talking about these gaps right now, I think most of our election officer positions are pretty filled for this election. We still have some more, though. Summer primaries are always a challenge. You don't have a lot of spots that you have to fill, but you're much more likely to have people that are not interested in working them, have summer plans, whatever it might be. So it always seems like they're going to be easy, and then it always turns out that they're actually a little bit harder from a staffing perspective than I think the general elections are. And I think what we've identified is that in terms of recruitment, we still do need to continue what I would call extraordinary efforts. We always get a certain number of applicants in any given year, especially in presidential years, that kind of surges. But I don't think our baseline is up to where we really want it to be to sort of maintain, you know, we have officers coming in and we have some officers going out, and we've reached a good place. I think this is especially true for on the Republican side of things. I think we need about 200 more Republican officers, and, you know, we could always use more Democrats as well to kind of match that, especially when we get into these primaries. So just a message to, you know, the party chairs and the parties that as people can help us to recruit those, I think that's helpful. I think we also probably want to look at doing an additional recruitment letter, email campaign, something along those lines. I'm going to talk to, John and Dina over the coming weeks about trying to get something out there as soon as this election is done to help us in November. Hopefully what continues to happen is as we have, especially with the shortages on the Republican side of things, as we have officers that get more experience, they move into those leadership roles, and then we need to continue to backfill the positions that they're vacating so we can maintain our balance on that. So kudos to Dina and our new staff member, Rick Burrows, who are both doing an excellent job, working every angle they can to get people engaged and keep them engaged. And they're doing a great job, especially over the last couple elections, of sort of having one-to-one party matches in those situations, which we really haven't seen in this county for a long time. So that's great. And then I want to send a reminder to the party chairs and some of your committee individuals. One of the things we've been having recently is that we're getting calls from officers who are confused about messages they get from us and from the parties. So I just ask that we're going to try to modify some of our communications to put a banner or something on them so it makes it very clear it's coming from our office. The parties do trainings on different things. We do trainings on different things. So there's some confusion from some of the officers about, well, I went to this event, I thought I had completed my training. No, that was a training the party ran. So if the party chairs and any of your individuals who are setting up trainings in particular can make sure to make it very clear that who the sponsor is in those instances, that would be helpful. We will try to make sure that our messages are as clear as they can be on that as well. So that was all I wanted to mention on that front.
Okay, we're at the point for public comments. Do we have a list of people who signed up?
Okay. Should be out on the, it's.
Thank you. Okay, the first person is Colin Robinson.
Is this on?
You press the button there.
I think that it's the small microphone anyway, right?
All right, thanks. I just had trouble hearing Natalie's.
Yeah, I don't know if the system's on or not.
My name's Colin Robinson. I'm a Gainesville resident. Full disclosure, former chair of the Prince William Democrats. And I'm here, the stated subject was Eric. I didn't realize Eric was coming back to work, but it didn't apply to him. It applied to the actions of the state in leaving the ERIC system. And that puzzles me, but it's starting to fall within a pattern of things that has brought me to come and tell you that I hope you all remember that you are not a Republican or a Democrat when you do your duties on this board. You had 2 Republican state officials establish ERIC, and you have 2 of them going out. And it seems to me it's falling within the pattern that started right after the last presidential election, or actually before, the prediction of fake election and thrown elections. And I see other smaller things like all of a sudden felon restoration of voting rights all of a sudden becomes a judgment thing. Maybe the governor will agree on one and not the other. And I worked for 5 years pretty hard in politics. That's my only time. Other than that, I did voting. And you know when I started and when I ended. But I was always proud of the work I saw the electoral group do here, despite not always having the most perfect systems or the most perfect equipment or software. And that whether a leader at an election site was a Republican or Democrat, I knew I could go in and talk with them if I had a question, and they would deal with it by the regs. And I just felt the need to let you know I'm worried. I don't hear it all happening the same way. And it's only a 3-person committee.
Thank you.
So the other person who signed up is Elizabeth Block. If there is anyone else who wants to do a public comment that didn't sign up, please line up over there along the wall. So Elizabeth?
Hello, welcome back, Eric. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
You can? Okay. One of the items that we have been emailing the election office about and haven't gotten any response from, we have 5,000, and there's probably more by now, but there's 5,000 NCOAs for registrants who told the U.S. Postal Service of their own accord that they had permanently moved out of the state of Virginia, and they're still active on the registrant rolls here in the county. This is after the recent action. And I'm sure there's more by now because we have such a transient area and all, but other county election offices, registrars have made arrangements to take their own action on the NCOAs in that state, in that condition, and worked with elect and got approval on their own to send notices to those registrants to their new address and their out-of-state address. And I would like to know if this county could do the same. I explained in detail in emails, I just haven't heard back. Secondly, can the office provide a metric for how long it takes for a registrant's undelivered mail, when that undelivered mail is received back in the office for a registrant, how long does it take between receiving that undelivered mail and that registrant's going from active to inactive status? Do we have a metric for how long that takes? In addition, there is a new bill that passed this year, Bill 1948. And I think we should be aware that it's something that has to be implemented by the office. It involves absentee ballots. And now the last 4 of the Social Security number and the year of birth is to be placed on the absentee ballot, on the inner envelope for the ballot. And my question is, how is that to be implemented by the office? Could the Electoral Board please observe the process being conducted? I assume it's going to be handled inside the office by staff members, but will the party central absentee processing officers, the party officers, not the staff officers, but the party officers, verify this information as well? It's just an open question. I don't know how Bill 1948 will be implemented. And I have a number of other open questions that, again, they're questions. I know you guys didn't like the FOIAs, but unfortunately FOIAs seem to be the only way we can get responses, so we're trying questions. We haven't gotten some of our questions answered, including, for example, poll books. It's a wide open question. The State Board of Elections said in March that new software would be installed and sent to the counties for the Demtech poll books. They called it a time chip. It's really not a time chip, it's software. Just wondering if you have received that. It's not an intrusive question, it's just a question. I don't think we're revealing anything. So by the way, the board should know, while you are not responsible for approving voting systems, the board should know that the DemTech revision, latest revision, was actually a software revision. It should have been newly certified. It was not. The state put it through with a de minimis change. We believe that that was an incorrect decision. You should know this. There's also some security settings that the county is responsible for on the poll book that's enumerated. I've emailed about this. You guys, you're the election office. You can find the certification documents. And I just want to be sure that the county is handling their security measures appropriately. And we haven't gotten any answers back on a number of questions. And I know on the matter of Eric, the only thing I would like to say on the Eric removal is that Eric was sharing DMV data with third-party organizations. Eric was not handling its own data work. They were offloading it. Details about minors were being shared all over the country. And there are some, I don't see, if we have 5,000 NCOAs left on our county rolls, I don't see how Eric was functioning properly. There were some quite valid reasons for concern. It may have started out as a wonderful idea, but it's just time for the state to take its own measures. They have its own tools available in getting the information to keep our voter rolls tidy as is required. So
right.
I appreciate your time. Do you have any other questions
wrap
for
it
me?
up? Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mr. Tony Giuffre. Hold on a second. Let me,
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Eric, in person,
Lowercase Eric.
lowercase Eric, right? I wasn't going to speak today, but the gentleman before me made a comment about you're not Republican, you're not Democrat in this board. He has not read the state code. The state code requires you to carry a party label, requires you to be nominated to the Circuit Court of Virginia in Prince William County by the political parties. They expect you to carry that label, and we've had this discussion many times back when we were forcing, early on, Mr. Chairman, when you and I were forcing the registrar to try to get better parity. We had a discussion with many election officials saying, "Oh, well, we can be fair to everybody." Well, that's true. You're supposed to be fair based on the written law, but you're also supposed to be a monitor for your political party. You are the eyes and ears of your political party. Mr. Chairman, excuse me. Mr. Chairman, I was actually proud that you made a comment about the Eric thing and tried to get the board to change, because evidently this is a partisan issue, and the Republicans have their basis for why they want to do it, and the Democrats have their basis for why they want to continue it. So you, in this particular motion you made, you were supporting your party. And I think that's the way it should be. So I think when you're teaching these election officers, when they come before you, to make it important that they're not to give up their political persuasion. They're not to hide it. They're supposed to be proud of it and use it to be the eyes and ears of their party. I think that's about all I have to say with this. Other than that, I enjoyed seeing you all again and appreciate glad you're healthier, I think. Natalie? He is healthier? Okay, all right. So thank you all very much. God bless you.
thank you. Thank you. All right, so that concludes citizens' time. We now have several items to discuss in closed session. So do we have a motion to adjourn, or to go into closed session? Do you have the,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Electoral Board go into closed session pursuant to Virginia State Code, Section 2-23711, and the exception is, let's see, we're going to talk about A34 and amongst a couple others for the purpose of discussing issues related to voting security matters.
is there a second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, thank you all very much.
We also have to discuss evaluation.
So we are back in open session. Do we have a motion?
To adjourn?
No, to make,
Motion to reappoint the General Registrar to another term,
4-year,
four-year term.
all right,
beginning July 31st,
July
2023. 2023. Correct. To run through 2027.
right.
Second the motion.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So now, a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn this meeting, Prince William County Electoral Board at 1:06 PM.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, passes. All right, thank you.